All right, I'm back again for another recent gaming. 5 games again, as usual, as per usual, and only PS5 games this time. I've been thinking probably later in the year I'll probably do like a special edition of recent gaming where I go only through PS1 games. Like I have such a huge backlog of games on the PS1 and the PS2. I'll probably do like special editions of recent gaming for those consoles in specific at some point, where I just pick a bunch of just random games from my backlog, short games, long games, and just grind through a set of those and then talk about them. But yeah, I usually try to include some more recent games in these episodes, so it's just PS5 this time. Technically, I have 7 games here because one is a triple pack. But right, let's get into it. Let's start with the weirdest one. So I went through the Jeff Minter story, which is the digital Eclipse documentary game for Lamasoft. So I've already talked about the Tetris Forever release by these guys. Previously, I've talked about the making of Karateka, which was also by these same guys, and now we get to Jeff Minter and Lamasoft and his bizarre games. So he's a British game developer, still alive, still active, and he started in the old school days of UK game development, making games for like Vectrex and these sort of systems. His games were also ported for Atari systems and other like 80s PCs and stuff like that, consoles and so on. And this is a strange thing. Out of these digital Eclipse games, this is probably my least favorite, just because the games here don't really, many of them don't really work for me. Like these are very, very early arcade style, very archaic video games, in comparison to something like Tetris, which is very robust even for how old it is. And even Karateka is a very complex game. Has lots of mechanics going for it. These are just it's interesting. The game starts, or the documentary starts, obviously from the first game that he developed, which was it annoys me that they don't list all of the games here, because it's already like over a month since I played this and I can't remember all of the games anymore. But he started off, he did like borderline illegal knockoffs of games like Centipede and these like, famous big arcade games. He had a version of Asteroids, I think, that he made. And these are some of the early games. They are not very good. Like they have clear issues with the controls and some pretty glaring design flaws. Many of them games aren't very fun to play, I don't think, anymore. At least it's difficult to say what they were like back in the day when they were brand new and there wasn't really anything better around. But now there are 42 of these bizarre games that he made. Granted, some of these are like ports of the same game for different systems, where the game is pretty much the same but with some slight variance to the graphics and some additions and so on, some improvements. But out of the 42 games, how many did I actually enjoy playing? Maybe 10 or so. They are interesting curiosities. So you have games like Attack of the Mutant Camels, which I think the original version of that game is pretty bad. And there are also other versions of the game. There's even I think it was Attack of the Mutant Camels. There's a cancelled, never released version of that game here, which is very interesting. And this is the stuff that's the strongest part of this release. Like with Karateka, it's not necessarily the playable games, but the documentary side of it. So you have lots of design documents, letters, posters, marketing material from the 1980s. You have video interviews of Jeff Minter and some other people involved in the UK video game scene at the time, fans of his games and so on who have been interviewed. And there is a lot of documentary material here that's pretty interesting. Not necessarily as much as with Tetris Forever, for example. There's a lot of really boring design documents and stuff like that. Lots of writing that's not very engaging, but the video stuff is really high quality again. And when it comes to the playable games, some of the good ones, like this is the guy who made Grid Runner, which is probably the best known game that he has ever made, Grid Runner. And there is a new version of Grid Runner here in this release that's kind of like a reimagining made by the Digital Eclipse guys. And that's a really good version of Grid Runner. I like that one a lot. There's also, what else? I can't remember the titles of the games. There's the shooter game. One of the early games that's really fun is the shooter game where you are controlling a character on the bottom of the screen and on the right side of the screen. So you have two ships that you shoot with. You have to move both of those ships with like in tandem basically, and like shoot everything that comes at you. That's a pretty fun game. I can't remember the name of it. It's something like Laser Battle or Laser Zone or whatever, something like that. Pretty generic title. There's also some of the games are borderline unplayable. You have the bizarre goat games. What is the title of it? I can't remember. It's the one with this character, like this white goat character. I still do. I tried playing that game for like 15 minutes and I didn't understand anything that was going on screen, so I just gave up. And very experimental games, very psychedelic games. This is like 80s brain rot. Even Grid Runner, it's just insane. Like there are so many sounds and just flashing lights on screen, and enemies going and coming everywhere and bullets flying around. And most of the time it doesn't, like the first time you play one of his games, like you're going to be shocked, like it's not going to make any sense. But then the more you play them, it kind of slows down and you understand more what is going on. I did manage to do some of the harder trophies for Grid Runner, for example. Not all of them, but at least some of them. This game has a ridiculously difficult trophy list, like an insane trophy list. I will never platinum this game. You have to get really high scores in some of the most difficult arcade games probably ever created, and it's not going to happen. But yeah, some of the other good games: Tempest 2000, really good shooter. This sort of like shooter, like you're on a plane like this. And you have to move around on this plane, and then like kind of roll around. It's like a circle that you roll around in with this sort of a plane, and enemies come from here, and you shoot at them. Instead of editing in gameplay, I just explain with my finger. So there you go. Hope you enjoy that. And yeah, Tempest 2000 is really good. Revenge of the Mutant Camels, strange game. Some of the versions of that are actually pretty fun, where you are playing as a mutant camel. This guy has a fixation with camels and like llamas and sheep, and his games are full of them. It's very strange. One of these games that I don't think was very good, but interesting is a game where you are like basically it's a shoot 'em up game where you are a sheep, but you can land on the ground to eat the grass. Like just bizarre mechanics like this. His games are interesting, to say the least. And yeah, this doesn't include many of the more recent ones. I'm kind of disappointed that this doesn't have a playable copy of Space Giraffe in it, because that game never got a physical release. And also, like the more recent ones, like Akka Ar is not here. So this ends in, I guess the playable games end in the 90s, late 90s, I guess, maybe early 2000s. I can't remember exactly the years, but yeah, interesting title. Not the best digital Eclipse game out there, but interesting. The cover art itself is gorgeous. So yeah, I'd give this like a low 7. The more I played through the game, the more I appreciated the games themselves, because they do get better. Like the early games from the 80s are very rough, like the 3D Cube Maze game. It took me a long time to even understand how that game works, but I did get the gold trophy for that as well. And yeah, many of the games are not very good, but there are some bangers here. And very interesting guy, Jeff Minter. And yeah, I do appreciate the psychedelia. Yeah, I forgot to talk about the light synthesizer. So he is the guy who created the light synthesizers. I didn't know that he was the guy who created the Xbox. Was it Xbox 360? It had the background, like the background that moves. He's the guy who directed, who came up with the program that does that, for example. Very interesting. I like the light synthesizer games quite a bit. So it's basically like you can select a music track, and then you move a cursor on screen, and it creates these sort of psychedelic shapes, and you can like record these sort of pixelated light show things. There are a couple of different versions of his synthesizer games here, and I did mess around with all of them for quite a bit of time. So yeah, interesting guy, interesting game. So yeah, I'd give it like a low 7, maybe a high 6, low 7, something in that range. Only for the true enthusiasts, like true hardcore fans of like old school arcade games. Right, next up, a triple pack of games. So basically, like I said in the beginning of the video, I have 7 games here instead of just 5 this time. But I'll talk about all of the Monument Valley games. I was really happy to see that this was getting a physical release. Also has a digital soundtrack download. This is a game that I wish had a physical soundtrack CD, because it's really, really cool, the music. Also some art cards, one-sided sort of postcards. And here you can see the art style of the games. Absolutely jaw-droppingly gorgeous. So these are puzzle games. The puzzles themselves are quite simple in all of the games. It never really goes that difficult. But these are more like art projects. So it doesn't really matter to me that it's not difficult. So the original Monument Valley, these are mobile games, by the way. And the controls for the PS5 are good. Surprisingly good. You move a cursor on the screen with the thumbstick and then click around. And sometimes you have to like rotate stuff. The controls are very simple, and there's a system here where when you move the cursor around, it kind of automatically snaps on things that you can interact with. So the controls feel quite fluid, and like it's easy to like do the rotation puzzles and everything like that. Of course, in the original mobile games, you were just using your finger on the touch screen, which is much more intuitive, but the controls are good. I didn't really have any problems with them. The only problem is that if there are multiple items close to one another that you can interact with, it's kind of it can sometimes be difficult to get the cursor to stick on the right one, but yeah, it's not a problem. Let's talk about all of the games separately, because this is a trilogy pack. And when you put the disc in, it downloads each game separately. So it doesn't have this sort of a hub for just this trilogy pack, which is unfortunate. It works kind of similarly to the Five Nights at Freddy's collection. What was it called? Five Nights at Freddy's. It's on my shelf there somewhere. Five Nights at Freddy's Core Collection. Yeah, it works kind of like that. So you have to download each game separately and then launch each game separately to play them. The first game, one of my all-time favorite puzzle games. I loved it. One of the few mobile games that I've ever played and completed. And yeah, I talked about this a little bit in the collection update where I showed that I picked this up. But yeah, it's incredible, really. It's very short. All of these games are short. They're only an hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours long. The third one is a bit longer if you do all the side stuff. But I appreciated that they included all of the levels here. So you have the base game for Monument Valley, and then you have the expansion pack with how many levels are there? The first game has quite a few extra levels, at least 6 of them, I guess. I think. And then you also have these sort of campaign levels, this one-off campaign levels for these different fundraisers and stuff that they did, and they are also included here. So there's that. And yeah, the base game is fantastic. It's, I think, 9 levels long, and then the DLC is like 6, 7, 8, 9 levels more, and then you have that one extra level. I guess it was 18 or 19 levels altogether, and it's just a visual feast. It is like the art style is so nice. It's so clean. It has this minimalist. It's not really minimalism because there's a lot going on, as you can see on a cover art. There's a lot of detail to it, but it has this clean look to it and these very nice soft colors, sort of pastel colors to it. And the puzzles themselves are simple. You are rotating parts of the architecture. So you are rotating the buildings and you're creating these sort of visual illusions, like these bridges that don't exist. Because if you rotate stuff, it kind of creates this illusion. And it looks complicated, but when you're playing it, it all makes sense. The final level of the original Monument Valley is probably the one that I've always had the most difficulty with in all of these 3 games, because there are so many different places where you have to get to in that one level, and there are lots of different small pieces that you have to rotate around to create these pathways, and it can get a bit mind-bending at times, because sometimes your character is walking on walls and ceilings because you're rotating stuff, and then you rotate with the architecture and stuff like that. So it can get a bit confusing at times, but I don't think it's anything too difficult. I would give the original Monument Valley like a strong 9 out of 10. Not a 10 out of 10 because it's very short, and I kind of wish that there were more to it. You do get new mechanics unlocked all the time, like not all of the levels, but the game's pretty short, and you do get these different mechanics. So you have, for example, this totem pole character that is kind of like a second character that you have to use, like move around and then like get on top of it, and get to higher places like that. And you're moving 2 characters at the same, not at the same time, but in the same puzzles and stuff like that. And you have like rotating bridges, but you also have like fully rotational buildings, and you have these sort of buildings within buildings that you have to like move up and down, and you have these pieces where you're standing on them, you can't move them, but then some of the pieces you can be on while you're moving them, and these sort of like small variations that make the game more interesting. Now, the second game I thought was a bit of a disappointment. It was pretty much just more of the same from the first game. This was the first time I ever played the second and the third games. So the second game is probably my least favorite in the series. It's more of the same. It looks really nice. There's more of an emphasis on the visuals, even more so. There's lots of like these gorgeous mountain sides and like crumbling buildings and everything like that. There's lots more going on in terms of the visual style, and there's also a much more of a story in the second game, which I do appreciate. So in the first game, you are this little character, and you're trying to get from point A to point B. In the second game, you control both a mother and a daughter, and you use both of them. And the game starts with the daughter being really young and kind of useless, and you kind of have to get them through the levels. But then the character grows up, and and they become more independent, and you have levels where you're only playing as the daughter and levels where you're only playing as the mother, and it kind of tells this story of different generations, and it's interesting. It's fun. It's well made, but yeah, it's just more of the same. it's not really that. Especially playing it back to back with the first game, I wasn't that impressed by it. Like I have very fond memories of the first game, but yeah, the second game I'll probably replay it at some point, but I don't know. But then the third game, so I'd give it the second game like a solid 8 out of 10, and then the third game just completely blew me away. Incredible game. It's even better than the first one. Um, it has even more impressive visuals than the first or the second game. It has new gameplay mechanic, like completely new mechanics. The second game does as well, but the third one has like gameplay sections where you are on a boat, like sailing around looking for puzzles. It opens up more, and just a ton of side content. After you beat the game, that's like halfway point, because there's so much optional stuff that you can do. I really like these short kind of memory levels where it's just one tiny puzzle that you solve. Some of them only last for like a couple of seconds. Some of them are a bit more complex, but these sort of small little snippets, kind of like ideas from all over the place. Probably unused puzzles from previous games and whatever, for at least some of them, but really nice stuff. And they have I don't know why they used it only for one level, but they had this really cool idea of this sort of an origami folding puzzle where you are kind of folding the level like as you would an origami with paper. So you have to like fold and unfold parts of the terrain to create these pathways to get through the level. Very interesting idea. They only used that for one puzzle. I have no idea why. Then they have these tree puzzles where you have to grow parts of like tree branches and stuff to create pathways. Very cool. And then the kind of, I guess, the DLC levels or the extra levels that unlock after doing the main storyline. Very different from the other games. I don't want to spoil anything, but there are a lot of different ideas in the third game. Lots of different mechanics. Some of the old mechanics return. Many of the old mechanics return, but there's so much new stuff in there. And the music is so good. The music is so good. Like the first game, second game, third game, they all have this very, very, very nice ambient electronic soundtrack to them. Especially the first game has a really, really, really like smooth, relaxing ambient soundtrack to it. The second game has more dramatic moments in it, so it's not as relaxing. But then the third game, they have added so many instruments to the soundtrack, and it's incorporated to the game world because there's lots of characters in the world who play instruments and like sing and dance and whatever, and that's incorporated into the soundtrack. It's really, really nice. So for a while I was pondering, should I give Monument Valley 3 a 10 out of 10? It's bordering on a 10 out of 10 game for me. But I can't, because the puzzles themselves, again, they are really simple. Like it's strange giving a puzzle game a 10 out of 10 where the puzzles are more like an afterthought. It's more of an art piece. Like this sort of interactive visual art piece. And that's the main thing for me about these games. It's not really about the gameplay. The gameplay comes second. So I would give this third game also a strong 9 out of 10. That's pretty damn good. 9, 8, 9 for the trilogy. Good stuff. That's Monument Valley Trilogy. Moving on. I've already spent too much time talking about each game. But when I dropped the number of games down from 6 to 5, I thought that the videos would be shorter, but the videos are just longer than before because I'm talking more about each of the games. So I don't know. Hopefully you enjoy the more in-depth commentary on these games. Next up, a survival horror title, Crow Country. I went through this game, got the No, I didn't get the Platinum Trophy because I would have to replay the game to get the S rank, and I'm just not going to do that. I did everything else in the game except for the S rank trophy. Now this is a PS1 throwback. Of course, like a PS1 game wouldn't look this good, but it has the same style to it, like this polygonal style to it. Very good game. I enjoyed this one a lot. This recent gaming episode is much more positive than some of the ones before this, where I was just trashing on games left and right. Very good stuff here this time. The next one is the weakest in this episode, but it's still a pretty enjoyable one. So yeah, it's a PS1 style survival horror game. Some things that I enjoy about it: no inventory management, love it. You can pick up everything. That's perfect for my tendencies. I like hoarding stuff. So very happy to see that there is no inventory management here. You pretty much have infinite ammunition. If you run out of bullets, you can just go to a vending machine, kick it, and get free bullets. And the vending machines are like all over the place. It's much more focused on the puzzles than anything else, really. It's a very easy game in terms of the combat. The enemies aren't really that difficult, that threatening, and you have so many bullets you can just blast through everything if you want. And what makes this game incredible is the atmosphere, the soundtrack, and just the look and feel of it. It is exactly what I enjoy about PS1 era survival horror games. The music is immaculate. It's mostly very reminiscent of Resident Evil games. So you have this sort of save room music and mostly just this dark ambience. Some more out there tracks as well, especially later on in a game. There are some music tracks that are quite bizarre and interesting. But yeah, it's just a good time. You play as this woman who's kind of a detective, I guess, at least portraying herself as a detective. And she goes into this abandoned amusement park looking for the owner of the park. And there's like a missing persons thing going on and stuff like that. And then you go to the park, everything is fucked up. There's a bunch of NPCs you can interact with. Not really many side quests or whatever. There are some puzzles that you can solve, like hidden puzzles, 15 of them. But mostly it's a very linear experience, like you would expect in a survival horror game. You walk around, look for items, look for keys, look for puzzle items, solve puzzles, get more keys, unlock doors, and you kind of run around the place and backtrack and stuff like that. Very typical for this genre, but it's so well made. It's a tiny indie game. Really happy to see that it got a physical, just a retail release. That's very cool. And it's a good time. It's a really good time. I enjoyed it a lot. I did start playing the game again at the hardest difficulty, kind of new game plus, but I didn't go too deep into it because I was just running out of time and had other things to do. So I'll probably go back to this at some point and try to get the Platinum Trophy, but not immediately. So yeah, I think Crow Country is fantastic. One of the things that I don't like about the game is that the firing mechanics, like shooting, is pretty all over the place. It's quite easy to miss your shots. If I didn't have pretty much infinite ammunition, I would be very frustrated with the aiming system because the enemies are moving around a lot, and you have this kind of a laser sight thing that you can aim enemies with. It's not like Resident Evil or Silent Hill where you basically like fire somewhere in the vicinity of an enemy and it hits. You miss a lot in Crow Country if you are going for headshots, for example, and it's very easy to not hit your shots. So that's one of the things that I don't enjoy about it. It's also maybe a bit too easy. It's very easy in comparison to, again, let's say a Resident Evil 2 or even a Resident Evil 1 or some of the other survival horror games on a PS1, like what would I say, like Chaos Break. Like Chaos Break is incredibly difficult in comparison to Crow Country. just to name a couple of games that are pretty similar to this. But yeah, it's a great time. I'd give it a low 9 out of 10. Like a little bit below Monument Valley, but very good. Maybe an 8.5, low 9, 8.5, around that range. I think it's fair. And a very high score for a game like this sort of tiny indie horror game. Right, moving on. Next, I played twice through Alone in the Dark. Now, the company that made this game doesn't exist anymore. They were shut down pretty much immediately after this game came out. So this is a reboot of the old school, the OG survival horror game, like Alone in the Dark, often regarded as the first one, or at least the first significant one, the most significant survival horror game of the old days of horror video games. And this is a reboot of that. So it's a Lovecraftian mystery horror game, survival horror stuff. And it's pretty fun. I enjoyed my time with it. It's not great, but it's pretty fun. It's like a psychological thriller for most of the part. And then you have quite a lot of horror elements in it. But yeah, it is very obviously stealing a lot of stuff from Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's kind of funny. Like for example, in Resident Evil 2 Remake, I think that was the first game where I saw it. Where maybe it was Resident Evil 7, where you have this sort of like, let's say, bolt cutters that you would use to like break chains or whatever. And when you use them, they would go on screen, like float on screen, and then break the chain or the lock or whatever you're breaking. And they used that also for Resident Evil 2 Remake. And I think, did Tormented Souls also steal that? If I remember correctly, yes. But I could be mistaken about that. But here, just a blatant ripoff of that idea. Like you have these floating bolt cutters that break the chains and stuff like that. And they're like it's very much from the same point of view as the Resident Evil 2 Remake. This over the shoulder, pretty close to the character. Camera angle, it's the same here. And it just overall it looks and plays and feels like a Resident Evil, like modern Resident Evil 3D action game. Pretty fun. It's not as good as those games, which I'll get into get more into in a moment, but it's obvious where it got the inspiration from, and a pretty good place to take inspiration from. Now there are two playable characters. You have Edward Carnby, who looks exactly like that one Hollywood actor whose name I can't remember. I don't know if it is actually him. Oh, it is David Harbour. I didn't even realize that it said it on the back cover. It was David Harbour all along. I thought that it looked like him, but I didn't know that it was him. Like, he's a pretty famous actor. And then Jodie Comer, I don't know who that is, as Emily Hartwood. So you have two playable characters. I was pretty disappointed that both of the campaigns are pretty much exactly the same. So there is really not that much difference. There are some difference in the cutscenes and the dialogue between characters, of course, because you are using different character and whatever. And then there is one gameplay section later on in a game that is specific to each character. So with David Harbour, with Edward Carnby, you have the bridge sequence, and with Hartwood, you have like well, I don't want to say what her sequence is because it's a bit of a spoiler, but you have that sequence later on in the game with the barbed wire stuff and the explosions, and you know. I guess it's not really a spoiler. Like the game takes place between the world wars, so there's some World War stuff in the Emily Hartwood campaign. Let's just put it that way. And otherwise, it's pretty much the same story. It's very fast to run through the game a second time if you remember all the puzzles and everything or where you're supposed to be going. So you are exploring this manor, this Hartwood Manor. looking for Jeremy Hartwood, who is missing. And there's just a bunch of weird characters. You figure out pretty quickly that this manor is not just some manor. It's like basically a sanitarium, like an insane, not an insane asylum, but this sort of a manor where you have a bunch of people who are kind of resting their minds. Let's just put it that way. And there's just a bunch of weird people. There's also a mechanic where you kind of warp into another world, as you often do in these sort of games, and that's kind of a mindfuck at times. Like you enter a room and then you are in a different world, in the past or whatever, somewhere, and it's very Lovecraftian. Like at one point in a game, you enter a dark desert and a temple in the desert. Very reminiscent of H.P. Lovecraft's. What is the short story called? It's not At the Mountains of Madness. It's is it Lurking Fear, or is it Shadow over Innsmouth? I can't remember. If you are a Lovecraft expert, let me know in the comments. It's the story where the guy descends into this strange temple. Like he goes to this like desert temple. He has his servants with him, who are in the story described as extremely muscular, oiled black men, which is weird. But H.P. Lovecraft was a weird guy. Let's just leave it at that. They may also have been slaves, whatever. And the guy goes into this temple and kind of describes all the things that he sees, and then he hears something coming to him and starts running away, and the story ends there. It's pretty interesting. It reminds me a lot of that story in particular. And it's pretty fun. The combat is like, it's not tank controls. The controls are pretty fluid for a survival horror game. One thing that I forgot to mention about Crow Country is that there is a choice you can make there. You can either play with the analog stick, where you have modern controls, or you can play with the analog like the directional buttons, where you have like really tanky tank controls. That's kind of funny. So yeah, that's one more thing about Crow Country. But here, it's pretty fast to run through the levels, and you are exploring the manor, looking for keys. It's very simple in terms of the puzzles. Most of the puzzles, you're just told the solution like immediately, which is pretty ridiculous. And for some of the puzzles, I was overthinking them so much, and it was really simple, the actual solutions for them. But yeah, you're just running around looking for a key, looking for an item, solve a puzzle, get another key, unlock a door, and this sort of thing. It's very simple, not that engaging in the long run. But the things that I enjoy the most about the game is definitely like the other world stuff, the bits, especially the one at the oil like plantation, where everything just sets on fire and stuff like that, and you have the swamp bits and like the desert temple. Very interesting stuff. And then in the end, it kind of turns into The Thing by John Carpenter for whatever reason. Reminded me a lot of the PS2 The Thing licensed game, where you get to the snowy areas and stuff like that. The final boss fight in the snow area was really like visually impressive. Like you shoot the boss in the head with a shotgun, and everything is just dripping blood. It's cool. And yeah, well, it's not necessarily the final boss, but it kind of depends which ending you go for, because there are multiple endings and like collectibles that kind of determine which ending you get and stuff like that. There are many endings. Like, how many endings are there? Like 5 or 6 different endings, something like that. Most of them are pretty similar to one another, though. And yeah, I like how honest the game is about its influences, like the Lovecraft stuff. I was dreading that they would kind of pull the rug under me at some point and do this sort of, oh, it was all just a dream because I was in a mental asylum all the time. But it's not that. They kind of stick the landing, I think, with the ending. Well, there is a little bit of that, but it depends on which ending you get. So it's kind of fun. It leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And then lastly, before moving on to the last game, I just want to shout out the voice actors for Alone in the Dark, who are atrociously bad, most of them, but also really funny. So that is, again, a throwback to the good old days of survival horror games. Voice acting that is so bad that it's good. I love Jeremy Hartwood's voice actor, and I will try my best to now do an impersonation of him, because he is the most ridiculous character I have seen in video games in a long time. So this game takes place in Louisiana, in the American South, and many of the voice actors are desperately trying to do a Southern accent, but failing really badly at it. So Jeremy Hartwood, his voice sounds like this. I will do my best. And this is actually this is a line from the game. Like the writing in the game is hilariously bad. He says at one point in the game later on, "I'm stuck in the mud, and the bayou is taking me." And that's the voice that he makes. Like every single document that you pick up that has Jeremy Hartwood in it. One thing that I do appreciate about this game is also that the notes that you pick up, they have voice acting in them, like fully voice acted documents. And Jeremy Hartwood, he talks like that in every single document in this incredibly bad Southern, oh, I'm a Southern guy, this sort of weird accent that just doesn't work. And it's absolutely hilarious. He is overacting, like this actor, I don't remember his name, but he is overacting his balls off in this game. It is really funny. It's really entertaining. I played this game with a friend of mine, and we were just bursting out laughing every time we were listening to the documents. He's not the only voice actor. There's also a voice actor who plays this sort of, I guess he's supposed to be Spanish or whatever. And in one of the notes, he talks about the great library. Like he's like, these guys are just flubbing the lines, and they were left in the game. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like they can't even pronounce the words. They're worse at pronouncing English than I am, and I'm pretty bad at times because I just don't care. I just talk whatever comes to my mind. The great library. It's ridiculous. What a ridiculous game! But it's a good time. I enjoyed it. It's a fun game. It's a really fun game. I went through the game twice, and never was there a dull moment in there. Well, I guess there are some dull moments in the game, because there are some slide puzzles and rotating puzzles that are pretty annoying, but you can get through them by just brute forcing them. Whatever. I'll give Alone in the Dark. I would give it a low 7, but because of Jeremy Hartwood's voice actor, I will bump it up to a 7+. There you go, a 7+ to Alone in the Dark. And then to end the video for the last game, I have here a shoot 'em up title. So in the last one, I talked about Ice Cream Surfer, which is an awful shoot 'em up, and I mentioned that I've also played a better one that I'll talk in the next one. So that's this. It's Mamoru-kun Recurse. Not much of a surprise here if you checked out the collection update video that I did this month. I had this game there as well, but I didn't talk about it much. And yeah, I'm really glad to have this in my collection, because I was eyeing the PS3 release of this, like the original physical. This was released on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, I think. One of very few bullet hell style shoot 'em up games and shoot 'em up games in general that got a physical release for the PS3. I think there's only like 5 of them, and this is one. This was one of them. Mamoru Curse. It's very expensive now, and this one at launch, $30. Thank you. I bought it immediately, and it does have the full color booklet that I also flipped through in the collection update video. And yeah, I mentioned this one in the not the recent game, the collection update video, that this is a very strange shoot 'em up title. I will elaborate more on that idea. Usually when you play a shoot 'em up game, you expect that you are in a spaceship, and then the screen, there's auto scrolls, and you just fire at all the enemies that are coming your direction. But not here. This is a game that has a time limit in it, and you are freely running around. Well, the levels are very linear, but you are running around the levels, which is interesting, and you have to manage time. So lots of different game modes here. The basic game mode, the arcade mode, is exactly that. You have 5 levels that you can choose from. You can play them in whatever order you want. You can start from the most difficult one and then move to the easiest ones if you want to. And after you beat the first level, depending on how fast you got through that and stuff like that, you get bonus time. So you don't lose all of the time it took you getting through the level. And then you carry that time over to the next level, which is more difficult now. So kind of depending on which order you choose the levels, they also change a bit. There are more enemies, different kinds of enemies, and stuff that appear in the levels depending on how late you play them in the game. If you leave the 5th level last and you play that, it's pretty damn intense. But if you play it first, it's pretty manageable. But then the first level, the easiest levels, they also get pretty difficult, depending on if you pick them last. Very interesting. You also have these boss fights, of course, again at the end of each level, and there's a special version of each boss fight that you can fight separately. These sort of mission levels. That's a more difficult version of the boss that you can challenge individually without having to go through the entire level again. And your goal is to go through these levels. You have this curse mechanic in it. You are basically it looks like a shoot 'em up game, like a bullet hell game. You are firing, you're running around and you're firing your shot. There are multiple different characters. Each one has a different kind of shot. For some, it's just straight up, very narrow. For some, it's wider. One of the characters has a homing system where all the bullets are like homing bullets. You have this one character who has just a bunch of these tiny characters following her around, and you kind of have to make lines out of the characters to line up their shots. And they're very interesting, different characters. I think all of the characters are useful in different ways. And you go through these levels, and you're just trying to survive and then make it to the final boss as you would. It's very short. It's the perfect length for a shoot 'em up title. You can beat the game in 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, and that's cool. But there's a lot of replay value here because there are so many different characters and trophies you can get with them, and these different pathways and everything. The levels themselves also have different pathways in them, so there are these sort of side tracks that you can wander off to and see different parts of the level as well. If you don't just want to walk forward the basic road, you can wander off a little bit, and you kind of have to do some exploration for certain tasks and stuff like that. It's interesting, it's fun. And one of the things that I do enjoy about this PS5 version a lot, I'm pretty sure it wasn't in the original, so they added a twin stick shooter mode here, which is feels very natural for this game. So as far as I know, in the PS3 version, for example, you didn't have this option to shoot with just the right thumbstick. You had to kind of stop and then fire with the circle or the X button and line up the shots that way. But with the twin stick, controls are so good. I tried playing through the game with the original controls, and it was it was really quite difficult. The twin stick controls make the game a lot easier, so I would suggest using that if you end up picking up a Mamoru-kun Recurse. Try out the twin stick controls. They are very intuitive and work perfectly with this game. Like, especially because in this game, like you're not firing just in front of you. You can kind of turn around to your left and right, and you have to angle your shots. And the twin stick controls work perfectly for that. And yeah, there's a lot of different game modes as well. There's a challenge mode that has a bunch of different challenges. I didn't do all of them because they are very time consuming, and just they kind of make you play through the levels over and over and over and over again. If you die once, you have to start over from the beginning. It's pretty annoying, but I did do some of them. I did do all of the boss rush challenges and stuff like this. And then you also have a fully fleshed out story mode where you have this sort of visual novel style dialogue in between the levels, and you have to go through all of the levels, and you have to beat the bosses with specific characters to unlock like a final stage and stuff like this. And I did go through the story mode as well, like the entirety of the thing. It took me around 2 evenings to get to over 50% of the trophies. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with my time with the game. It's fun. It's really fun. One thing that maybe annoys me a little bit is that the soundtrack has this like a Vocaloid, kind of Chinese Vocaloid thing going on, or like Japanese Vocaloid thing going on, and it's pretty off-putting. But some of the songs are like bangers still, even with the Vocaloid vocals on them. But yeah, just not my style of music at all. But yeah, Mamoru-kun Recurse, is it as good as I was hoping for? Not necessarily. It's good. It's interesting. It's different, and the bullet hell gameplay is fun, and dodging the bullets works really well. The hitboxes are nice, and the enemy designs. There are so many different enemy designs and bullet patterns, and some of the levels are pretty innovative, especially the one where you are like riding on the back of this like giant mantis, and there are these kind of pirate ships coming to attack you from the right side of the screen, from the left side of the screen, from the top. They're throwing barrels at you and shooting cannons at you. It's fun. It's really fun. But I maybe hyped this game up in my mind a little bit too much, because I wanted to own a copy of this game for so long, like for years. I've wanted to own a copy of this game for years at this point, because the PS3 release was just so expensive. I didn't want to spend so much money on it. That yeah, it maybe didn't exactly live up to the hype, but I'd give this game a solid 8 out of 10. Very good stuff. So yeah, there you go. 50 minutes of recent gaming. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back again next week. Bye.